All right, good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. We appreciate you joining us today for, as I mentioned earlier, one of our favorite webinars, Those Darn DPAs. Today, we're going to be diving into five of the most common misperceptions, objections, and obstacles that we hear about when it comes to transactions involving down payment assistance. The purpose of the webinar is truly to help everyone just feel more comfortable and confident when working with these products. So we're going to have some fun. Maybe the talking points will ruffle some feathers, who knows? But let's get started. My name's Will Medina. I'm part of our DPR team. We also have with us today Tracy McIntosh, Success Manager, Lori Johnson, our Customer Success Specialist, and Keith Futrell, one of our DPA program specialists. So an A team this afternoon. Just some quick housekeeping. The team will be answering questions in the background, so we ask that you use the Zoom Q&A feature to engage with us as we go. We find it's just a lot easier to track and answer your questions there. However, we are monitoring the chat, and all registered attendees will be receiving a recording of today's webinar. So how are we kicking things off? Well, we're going to be starting with a brief overview of the current state of down payment assistance programs. And from there, we'll be diving into, as mentioned, the perceptions and misperceptions surrounding down payment assistance programs. Specifically, we're looking to tackle the five most common obstacles and objections that we hear when it comes to working with these programs. So we'll be addressing those challenges head on, sharing insights and feedback from your industry peers. We're talking real estate agents and loan officers from across the country who are proficient in down payment assistance. They've kindly helped us identify best practices to help cut through the noise and to clarify timelines. And we'll also be sharing some practical tools that you can combine with those best practices to help enhance your approach to working with down payment assistance programs. We always like to begin with a little bio as well. Down Payment Resource is a national database and matching engine of all of the more than 2,500 homebuyer assistance programs across the country. Our team has decades of experience in residential mortgage finance and real estate. We've also created tools for mortgage lenders, real estate agents, and multiple listing services that enhance the experience and the workflow when working with down payment assistance programs. Ultimately, we love to say that our goal is to help you bridge the gap and connect home buyers with the down payment assistance they need. So as mentioned, I'll be starting off with a quick overview. We publish a quarterly report called the Homeownership Program Index, where we take stock of what's available across the country and look at developing trends um, within, the DPA ecosystem. And recently, what we found is that of all the home buyer programs available, 74% are some form of down payment or closing cost assistance. Within that, 80% offer deferred payments, meaning no monthly payment on the DPA loan for a set period of time. 53% are forgivable, either partially or fully, essentially turning into a grant over time. And 51% are both deferred and forgivable. On top of that, there are other DPAs that function as true grants at closing or as loans with monthly payments after closing. Now, for a deeper dive into all things DPA, we highly suggest attending our DPA 101 webinar. In that session, we explore these programs in more detail, including other options like affordable first mortgages, tax credits, and mortgage credit certificates. The webinar helps you understand how these programs are similar, how they differ, and what it takes to qualify for them. So we always get asked about who funds and administers these home buyer assistance programs. We know every state has a housing finance agency. There are local housing housing finance agencies in certain markets across the country as well. There are city and county governments, which often have community or economic development departments or housing authorities. Many employers, say like municipal governments, hospitals, and universities, may offer their employees down payment assistance. We have local housing authorities and community financial development institutions, CDFIs, as they're also known, um, which increase the local DPA options and the Federal Home Loan Bank network operating across the country through their member banks. A number of nonprofits like NeighborWorks and Neighborhood Housing Services and others also operate in markets across the country with varying programs. And there are community action agencies, land trusts, and so many other organizations out there that are all trying to open new doors to homeownership and help promote housing growth and responsibility in their market, which is your market. And they all have funded and available down payment assistance programs. So, as mentioned, down payment programs are everywhere. We're talking high cost markets, low cost markets, urban, rural. Every state has a housing finance agency whose programs are available statewide, plus all the local programs in each market. Income and price limits are market adjusted based on median incomes and median prices in that market. So you may see higher limits in higher cost markets. And one thing we always love to put up is this infograph. This is from our recent homeownership program index report, just highlighting the top 10 locations with really the most homebuyer assistance programs. But the main thing to take away from here is that there is literally no county in the country where some kind of help isn't available. So let's talk about some of the trends we're seeing with down payment assistance programs. And then from there, we'll get into rethinking our perceptions. Demand we see for DPAs remains through the roof. Providers are increasing assistance amounts, income limits, and purchase price limits to continue to help more buyers in today's market. We see providers continue to expand eligible uses of their funds as well as the inventory options. We see new state and local programs continue to launch in markets across the country. And 81% of all DPAs are funded and available. So we know there's so much more attention on affordability and down payment assistance now than in many years. So it is safe to say that these programs are still available and are not going away. As mentioned earlier, I wanted to go through a breakdown of our most recent homeownership program index report, Q1 2025. And just as a quick recap for those not familiar, the homeownership program index report, which we publish quarterly, offers a snapshot of trends. Over the past few years, we've observed a net increase in the number of programs hitting markets across the country. The report has also shown that 40% of programs have no first-time homebuyer requirement. 39% allow for the purchase of a manufactured home. 33% allow for the purchase of a multifamily residential property. We're talking 2 to 4 units, of course, the caveat being so long as one of those units is owner occupied. 25% of programs are considered statewide. Um, an example being your state housing finance agencies programs. Most of the rest would be considered local. And approximately 400 programs offer extra incentives for, say, military service or certain professions. So now let's talk about down payment assistance. These are some of the common things that we hear, some of the common talking points, especially from the lender perspective. But we will be considering lenders and real estate agents as we go. We hear that down payment assistance programs at cost, there is no margin, so that ultimately makes them unprofitable to originate. We hear that DPAs add a layer of post-closing complexity and risk. Looking at it from the lender perspective, we're talking getting loans off of the books, sold, off to a servicer. We hear that DPA training is hard to implement. There are adoption questions that are thrown out there, like are loan officers going to originate these? We hear that closing timelines, or will closing timelines, right? Will they be delayed because of the use of a DPA? And most importantly, will the program run out of money after I start the loan application? In the end, taking all of this into account, what we are essentially hearing from many in real estate and finance is that we love the concept of down payment assistance, but we struggle with the logistics and the economics of these programs. So that's why we're here today, to help combat some of these perceptions. We are here to essentially rethink our approach to and understanding of DPAs. And just as a small nugget, we're going to give you millions of reasons to rethink DPAs today. But first, let's outline the five most common objections or misperceptions that we hear about DPAs. We just went through talking points. We're going to acknowledge and discuss what the issue is, whether real or perceived, and then we're going to talk through some of the solutions to these issues and or even debunk some of them. So first up is inventory. We understand inventory remains tight in many markets. This is something real, but there are creative things that we can do to help uncover more inventory options. There is confusion about down payment requirements. Too many aspiring home buyers still think they need the traditional 20% down and don't know about low down payment mortgage options or even using DPAs, thus often giving up on the idea of homeownership. We will certainly tackle that issue. We know over the past few years that sellers, or more likely the listing agents representing them, have an apprehension about accepting contract offers that list buyers using down payment assistance programs. So we're going to talk through the issue and how to address it and deal with that kind of misguided apprehension. Another concern that's been around for many years is the misperception that all DPAs inherently extend, prolong, or delay the purchase transaction. We will talk through how that's not often the case and how those misperceptions arise. And lastly, and perhaps most importantly, one of the biggest problems out there is the lack of productive and fruitful real estate agent loan officer partnerships. We will talk about the challenges we hear from real estate agents and how loan officers can step in and help. As mentioned, our approach will be to present the issue and acknowledge and understand it, and then presents some solutions. These solutions are what we've heard from your peers, agents and loan officers around the country who have weighed in on these issues. This isn't stuff that we've made up for you. Truly, all curated from your peers. So with that, let's dive into the inventory issue first. So inventory. We understand that some of these problems are truly real and impacting home buyers across many markets. That there is still limited supply. Looking at it from a historical perspective, this is real in just about every market across the country, which of course makes it very difficult for buyers to compete. Interest rates remain elevated, which we know can stifle demand despite enormous interest in becoming a homeowner. Um, uh, and demand. So many buyers are still competing for the same properties and have been for several years now. It's important to also mention the sideline buyer that is weighing their options based on the current rate environment. People who purchased in the past few years that are, waiting to move out of their home to either downsize or purchase something bigger for their family. We understand that prices, of course, depending on the market, um, remain steady or increasing as well, not seeing much of a downward trend. And of course, ultimately, buyers are still struggling to compete, which compounds to create a very difficult situation for them, especially for a new buyer who's trying to get approved, get their bid won, and get into the home. So, as we've looked at this problem, what are some of the solutions to addressing it? Well, we like to say that it's important to consider alternatives to the open market. What do we mean by that? We're talking agency owned or municipal owned properties and land trusts that can be combined with down payment assistance, which can be an affordable option for first time homebuyers. Many local housing agencies or municipalities around the country purchase and repair blighted homes to then bring them back to the market at or below cost, or may even develop new properties that are meant to be affordable. Alternatives, we're talking homes that need minor repairs that may give buyers the opportunity to compete and to afford a home that they can make their own. And we certainly want to be clear, we're not talking about, a hole in the roof with respect to minor repair, but say those homes that don't get snatched up in the first week or two that maybe need a little TLC, but can offer a handy or motivated buyer another outlet for inventory. We also know it's important to get to know agents that list, say, these affordable properties to get on their email lists and thus monitoring their coming soon offerings. It helps get ahead of the competition and can help open new inventory options as well. Um, Another alternative to consider is manufactured housing, right? Truly may be considered an affordable housing alternative. It's also important to counsel buyers about what the process is and what competition will look like. Make sure they get pre-approved and probably take their home buyer education course early, which many DPA providers actually suggest, right? Housing counseling is sometimes one of the first steps. It also helps to partner with a housing counselor to help incubate and prepare new buyers. This helps build a bigger, stronger pipeline over time. And just as a quick anecdote, one agent in Houston says to use what they call calculated patience, meaning narrowing down the buyer's list of must haves for their new home so that you are fully prepared to strike on a contract offer when the right property hits the market. And certainly, it's important to be realistic about those must haves and to discuss those candidly while counseling these future home buyers. So now let's talk about some of the confusion that surrounds down payment requirements. According to a study, which truly still holds true by the Urban Institute in 2018, 65% of prospective buyers believe that they need at least 15 to 20% down to purchase a home, and 76% have little to no familiarity with low down payment programs. So yes, home buyers are not familiar with terms of requirements, even what the name of a program might be. When we're talking about requirements, we're talking about a misunderstanding of debt to income requirements. As an example, how are student loans calculated? So with all these questions in mind, with all this concern in mind, they potentially sideline themselves and just give up on the idea of pursuing homeownership. And as mentioned earlier, that nasty myth that 20% down is required. So many buyers still believe that, and that will also sideline them and keep them from pursuing homeownership. So, in summary, marketing content and activities need to better educate aspiring buyers and let them know that homeownership is within reach. And most importantly, how? How can we make this happen? So, as mentioned, the first thing would be to combat the 20% myth. We have to aggressively debunk it, especially among first-time home buyers. This is certainly not a requirement that is set in stone. And it's helpful if marketing content helps educate buyers accordingly. Getting outside of our bubble. We hear from so many realtors that they get into down payment assistance because one buyer came along who needed help, and that then led to a new path in their career, right? Uh, a new pipeline, a new tool in their tool set. And it also, from what we've heard, leads to a heartfelt desire to help. Aligning yourselves with other agents and lenders that are working in the DPA lane is helpful. It's also important to tell the stories of how you've helped others who have used down payment assistance. It not only makes great content for your social media audience, but it lets these future buyers know what you were able to accomplish for yesterday's buyer. And of course, make use of the educational tools that are out there, like our website, downpaymentresource.com, training classes from your state or local housing finance agencies, maybe even sitting on a home buyer education class, right? It's important to take the time to know what these tools are and then help offer those tools to potential home buyers. And part of that educational piece is just being willing to talk about down payment assistance programs, which we'll get into agent LO partnerships later on, but loan officers can certainly help you gain a level of comfort with DPA requirements, which will then open a path to helping more buyers. And listen, if you've heard this and think it's not for you, that's okay, right? Remaining in one's lane is not necessarily a bad thing. But if there's an eagerness for a little bit of discomfort, getting outside the bubble, right? That's fine. It's good to pursue these opportunities. If not, okay, refer those deals out. But certainly don't give up on those buyers that you feel would truly benefit from some form of down payment assistance. Now, let's get into sellers and their apprehension when looking at contracts listing down payment assistance. Is it true, right, that sellers don't like DPA contract offers? Is this something that is seen in the market? Well, we've heard from your your peers, and we certainly understand that one bad experience can potentially sour someone's willingness to work with a DPA program again. Sometimes the seller, or more likely the listing agent representing them, may have a misunderstanding of the DPA program, or may associate one bad experience with all DPAs broadly. It's important to also remember that sellers may need help framing the value of the down payment assistance program appropriately. Hey, did they get their closing costs covered by the DPA program? Yeah, if so, agents, this is a perfect way to help frame up that value to the seller, right? More take home there. We also know that sellers, and again, their agents, they want certainty and fear delays, and sometimes will associate a down payment assistance program with a lack of certainty and therefore a potential risk for delay. So, what can be done? It's important that realtors leverage the experience and expertise of their loan officer partners, right? They can help set those expectations with even the seller and their agent. It's also important to leverage the value, as mentioned, of the use of a down payment assistance program. As an example, they can be framed, right? The use of DPA can be framed as, hey, the buyer doesn't need to ask for closing costs from you because they have a DPA in place. So you're going to net more from this transaction, right? That is a value add. Um, it's also important to provide assurance that the deal will get done and done in a timely manner. Now, that also means you need to know the guidelines and the timelines for the program you're using for your client. As long as we educate ourselves and our borrowers on what is needed upfront, there is no need to fear delay. We also have to ensure that the consumer is on the same page as you. They should also understand what is needed upfront so that they are able to be invested in keeping their home purchase on track. We also keep hearing from realtors across the country, don't disclose more than you have to. It's important to put in the contract what state law requires, but if you don't have to disclose the source of funds for DPA, then it truly may not be any of the seller's business. And remember, ask a loan officer who does a lot of DPA well, and they'll tell you that a DPA buyer is a qualified buyer. So up next, we're going to look at the huge misperception of DPAs extending the transaction. Anything during the loan process honestly can cause a delay. Let's not just say it's the DPA. As an example, the loan officer didn't fully investigate cash to close up front, or as has happened, the DPA was added later in the process. Sometimes when a DPA is added later, people forget about the homebuyer education class that many require to be completed prior to closing. And to that point, delays often stem generally from a lack of communication amongst all parties. So, what can be done about this misconception? It's important to first build up our DPA IQ. Better understand the programs you're working with. What is the application process? What are the timelines? Is there a home buyer education requirement? Much of this is listed on the program provider's guidelines, whether it be the website or a document, very straightforward. Um, so with that, it's important to also complete home buyer education early if possible. The class is typically good for 1 year. On the other side of that, ensure all other services are ordered in a timely manner. We're talking about coordinating with title, seller, the lender. It's often not the DPA that causes the problem, but the DPA gets blamed. Imagine that scenario where a buyer gets qualified, shops for a home, takes a while, finally signs a contract, but the bank statement's expired. You need to update bank statements, not enough cash to close. Everyone will look at the situation and say, we need a DPA, but then the transaction gets delayed. In that case, the DPA wasn't the problem. Insufficient cash to close was the problem. The DPA was the solution to that problem, but could have been detected or anticipated earlier and done better. So, agents, it's important. Work with the loan officers who know the DPA well and can close on time. This last issue is one of the most important, in our opinion. Let's start with this. The most common question we get from real estate agents is, how do I find a loan officer that can help with DPA? Specifically, one that meets the following criteria: that they offer DPAs to begin with, that they're good at DPAs, and that they want my DPA first time homebuyer business. The problem with this is that many loan officers aren't meeting this demand with the right message, right? The message that they do offer the DPA and that they're good at it. So let's break this down. First, what can real estate agents do? It's important to speak with current loan officers, right? Ask the managing broker, peers for loan officer referrals, um, talk to program providers about who their most recommended loan officers are. Another thing is to educate, right? Educate ourselves on down payment assistance programs in our market. Create relationships with partners, loan officers, brokers, as mentioned, that offer these programs. Talk with your housing finance agency about their relationship with lenders, loan officers, or even real estate agents. They know who is offering their programs, right? Who is working their programs. Do first time homebuyer lunch and learns. Leverage truly the power of social media. All of this can help you craft an intake strategy with realtor partners that are working with consumers in need of down payment assistance. And go out there and court other agents too, that themselves list and sell affordable and DPA eligible properties. They may have great LO connections and not to mention insights into some of that inventory that we mentioned earlier. And then on the other side of that coin, what can loan officers do better? You can continue to grow, or if it's your first time, just in general, grow your DPA expertise. Work with your product development staff to get access to the programs that you and your agent partners and your home buyer clients need. Host teaching at network activities, maybe some lunch and learns and grabbing coffee with some local agencies, uh, meeting with brokerages and talking about down payment assistance programs. Get boots on the ground in your community. Get active with local unions, employers, faith-based organizations, and so many more organizations. Leverage again the power of social media and be present online where your agents are. And definitely make sure you have an intake strategy for those new DPA buyers and your new agent partners. And most importantly, broadcast all of this to your agents. They need to know that you're the local DPA expert that's ready to step in and help. So to recap, make sure that you explore creative inventory alternatives to the open market. Combat that myth that 20% down is required. Leverage the value that DPA brings to the borrower and to the seller. Set buyer expectations upfront and prepare early. And create effective and innovative partnerships between loan officers and other real estate agents. Now, if you remember, we said at the beginning we'd give you millions of reasons to reconsider your objections and possibly apprehensions about using down payment assistance programs. Well, I've kept my word. Did you know that 33% of all declined loans are salvageable with down payment assistance. Now, that includes loans declined for cash to close, but also for qualifying ratio issues. Now, DPA can't solve credit or employment or property issues, but a large amount of declined loans could be saved if a DPA were identified to help with cash to close or debt to income ratios. And when a DPA is applied to those declined loans, we found an average of about 6% reduction in loan to value. Additionally, we did some research a couple years ago and found that about 68 million single family homes in the US qualify for down payment assistance. This was 87% of all available homes on the market. That is a ton of inventory. And lastly, through more recent research, we found that about 32 million renters are mortgage ready, but many don't think they qualify. Now, why is that? It's because of the 20% down payment, or they think a student loan will kill that deal. They don't know that you can buy with 3 or 5% down. What we also like to say is that DPA customers truly become customers for life. So we encourage that you go out and tell their story, help them, and they will refer their family members and their friends. In closing, please feel free to reach out to us with any questions. We are here to help you and your clients find the assistance that they need. We can be reached at info@downpaymentresource.com. And we've also gone ahead and listed our main website, downpaymentresource.com, and our educational webpage, downpaymentresource.com/education. Lots of resources available there. What we will be doing now is if there are any additional questions, we're going to be sticking around for a few extra minutes to help answer some of those.
Hey, Will. This is
Hi, Tracy.
Tracy. Great job, Will, as always. We do have a couple of questions that our team has been busy answering in the background, and there are a couple that I think would be beneficial to answer live in case some of our attendees haven't seen the feed going on. First, though, before I dig into that, one of the questions we always get is, will we be sending a copy of this webinar, of this recording? And we will be sending that to everyone. Our VP of marketing is out on PTO this week, so she returns at the beginning of next week. And at that point, she will be able to get the fully processed recording sent out to you guys. So give her a little bit of grace. It'll take her a little bit longer this time than normal to get that out. So it'll be early to mid next week that you'll get a copy of this, and it will come to your email inbox that you used to register for today's session. So that's first and foremost. Secondly, we've had some really great questions about the homebuyer education course, and I
Mhm.
wanted to address that. In the chat, I left a link to the to a page that you can go to and find the HUD certified courses in your area. Um, those courses, we've had several questions about it, so I'm just going to address them all. Those courses are generally about 6 hours long. Some of them are in person, but many of them allow for online courses to be taken, and those can just be done all in one fell swoop, like a Saturday or a Sunday to do it, or you can break them up over a few days and do an hour or two, something like that a day, and get them done in a few days. But it is important to find a course that is HUD certified, which is why I put that specific link in the chat for everyone, because there are courses out there that are not HUD certified, and the majority of these DPA program providers require that it's a HUD certified course. So you will want to make sure to look for that. And also keep in mind that these courses, the certifications are valid for 1 year after completion. So if you have a home buyer that's interested in utilizing DPAs, I suggest having them go ahead and getting this course done and under their belt and wrapped up early in the process. This is one of the things that can hold up a loan process from closing is if the home buyer is dragging their feet on getting this course done. Um, that is not the DPA provider's fault, in that kind of a situation. But sometimes that does cause a little bit of a traffic jam in the situation and a holdup there. So I suggest having them get that done earlier so that it's already in line when they're ready to put an offer on a house. So that was a lot, but I did want to make sure to discuss that. And I will turn it over to anybody else if you guys have other things you wanted to know, because I see a whole bunch of stuff coming in since I've been speaking.
Lori,
Uh,
Tracy, that was great. Honestly, thank you
Thanks.
for for doing that. That was great.
No problem. I do
Uh,
see though, real
mhm.
quick, Inger, about the courses. I see you asked if it's free to attend. These courses can vary in cost, but they are um, the course providers obviously know that the reason for this course is because people need to use them for down payment assistance. So they keep the amounts really low. I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, Will and Keith, because I know you guys see this all the time, but sometimes they're like $100. I think I've only seen a max of $200 for a course. Sometimes you can find them for free as well.
Yeah, it'll vary, I would say, between those numbers that you just mentioned. Sometimes providers might even offer what they would refer to as like a coupon, so it'll be a discount off of specific courses. And as Tracy mentioned, there's not really like a big three, but some of them are, as an example, framework. I know Fannie also has their own, Freddie have their own as well. I don't think those are paid for, but most of them would fall in line with what Tracy said in terms of a cost.
Perfect.
Um,
There are
well,
questions
let's see
in
here.
Q&A. I'm happy to help chime in and answer any, but I don't want to take it over. Well, you can do your own thing.
Oh, no, please. I was just gonna say, that there was just one at the top regarding DPA availability for new home construction. Yes, it would certainly depend on the program provider. And of course, there is a distinction, right? Whether the home's already been built, most of them do not um are not attached to like a construction loan that obviously needs leads to a new construction home. But the providers are very clear within their guidelines about what those property eligibility requirements are. So thank you. Thank you for that question. Can we get a copy of the slides? A copy of the slides, as mentioned, will be sent out to the registrants of this webinar, but we always appreciate that question. We want to get you that information as soon as possible. See here, if a buyer goes through your site, how do I, as a real estate agent, stay in the loop of their status? Tracy, I may ask for some help here, but of course, the
Yeah,
context being if they use any of our products. But yes, I will let you take it away.
perfect. I was actually going to chime in and ask if you wanted me to handle it. So, on our website, we have this free eligibility search that anybody can perform, which is downpaymentresource.com/, are you eligible? Home buyers, agents, anybody can use it. We, in that case, if anybody utilizes that, they're just getting that free information. You're not able to stay in the loop per se, like you're not CC'd on any emails and things like that. You could do the search on behalf of your buyer, and then you would get that lead on your inbox and stuff like that. But we do have what is called Down Payment Connect, which is a tool that is designed specifically for agents and loan officers who are with either MLSs or lenders that are not already partnered with us, so that you can have access to our eligibility search tool and the lead generation portion of that, which does allow you to fix that question you had, Lisa, about staying in the loop. Because if somebody utilizes your Down Payment Connect eligibility search, um, and then they get those, submit for those results, they're going to have an email that comes to them with your contact information, letting them know you'll be in touch with them soon for results. But you, as the agent or the loan officer, would get a copy as well. So you would have a lead email with their contact information, the results that they've received based on the answers that they put in their questions and all of that. I would suggest if you end up utilizing that, whether you're utilizing it through a company that is already partnered with us, or if you're doing the paid Down Payment Connect version, As an agent, my biggest recommendation at that point is if you get that lead, ask if they're already working with a loan officer that you can send those results to, because if you're sending a copy of your email, one, it keeps you in the loop because you're making contact with their loan officer as the agent. And then secondly, the loan officer will be able to have access to the links in your email to be able to learn more about some of these programs, because there's a lot of um, lenders and loan officers out there that are not as familiar with all of the DPA programs out there, because there are just so many. And that could be really helpful for your buyer in that process to be able to possibly utilize one of those programs that their lender may not be aware of. So that is an option. Um, and then I think that that
Tracy, I
answered
was
all of
gonna
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask, you may have answered it there, but we have a question from someone that is both a licensed agent and originator,
Uh-huh.
referring to our products and basically, asking for advice. Do I subscribe for both or just one? What would be the best approach?
That's an excellent question, Gregory. I see that in Q&A. So if you are both a licensed LO and agent, you're going to want to sign up for the loan officer portion of the tool. The difference between the two, there is just a slight increase in price for the loan officer version, but that's because you're going to have access to approve of the down payment programs that you want consumers to see that you can help them with as a loan officer. As an agent, it's not as necessary that you pick and choose which programs you want your clientele to see. But as a loan officer, you're going to want to be able to have some control so that you're not putting out all of this information on DPA programs that you can't help them with, because they're not DPAs that you would utilize. So that's the one that you would need to sign up for. You do not want to sign up for both. You would have two completely separate URLs that you would put out there for the eligibility search, and that would be chaos. And I don't want to do that to you. So just sign up for the loan officer version, and you should be all set on that.
Thank you, Tracy. With that, if there are any additional questions, of course, feel free to submit them to us at our info at inbox. Also, take a gander at the website. Go through it. Not only do we have educational resources, but one of them being our webinar lineup, which we host quarterly. So if you want to take this one again as a refresher or to hear what updates have occurred, feel free, pass on that information as well. We are thankful for everyone joining us here today. And again, just a quick note, a copy of the webinar will be sent out to everyone that registered today. So we ask that you just be on the lookout. We will try and get it to you as soon as possible. So thank you all, and I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their day.